Welcome to another episode of the CC Podcast Conversations, where inspiring Christians share their faith-filled stories. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. This helps push our content to a broader audience. Are you new to listening? Check out our other podcasts. First, the CC Podcast Daily Dose Devotions, where we're walking through the Bible, focusing on short clips of Scripture. Second is the CC Broadcast, where our weekly radio programming is archived. These podcasts are available wherever you're listening or at ChristianCrusaders.org. Okay, let's get started with today's episode. Here's our host, Matt Reister, the Executive Director of Christian Crusaders.
Hey everybody, Matt Reister with the CC Podcast Conversations, and Andrew and I are in the studio this morning. Andrew, you doing well?
Doing fabulous, Matt. How about you?
We've kind of been like ships in the night passing. You were on vacation, I've been working at night, not in the office during the day, getting ready for the Bible conference.
Yep, exactly. Between that and goodness, the heat, and it's been an unusual July this year, I think.
Yesterday, we were sidelined by a blower fan outside the office that was drying the carpet, and so it wasn't a good day to record.
And a fire alarm.
They're
testing the fire alarms here, too. So
okay, well,
yeah, that happens.
We just accommodate what's going on. So today, we're going to hear an interview that I did last week with the Boettger family, Tim and Kris Boettger, their kids.
Love them. Friends of the podcast.
Isaac and Adrienne. Ike and Tim were on a podcast already. You'll hear about that.
Tim's been on a couple. He was also with us on some of our NRB 2023 podcasts. He was with our team down there in Orlando. So, and
of course, Tim is one of our radio preachers, and actually, as Steve Kramer, our main radio preacher for the last many years, retires at the end of this year, Tim's going to pick up a lot more of his role on the broadcast side. So,
Yep.
So this is an interview that was originally, in my mind, envisioned as being an interview about how do Christians navigate this minefield of youth sports.
Right.
Isaac being in the NFL, Adrienne being an All-American Division III basketball player. Their family has navigated this and navigated it very well.
Right.
One of my gripes is that as I go to these club volleyball or club basketball tournaments, it's just this atmosphere of parents caring way too much, and in the process, I think, screwing their kids up.
Yeah.
You made an interesting observation as you listened to it, though.
Yeah. I mean, I said what I told you the first time we chatted about this is, as I listened to this, the topic is youth sports, but this is parenting. This is bigger than youth sports, and I think that it needs to reach a bigger audience than youth sports and parents of kids in sports. This is academics. This is dance. This is music. This is theater. Everything. This is parenting, and how to parent your kids in an era where God bless us. We have a million things to do and a million good things that you can get your kids involved with, and there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
We had county fair last week. Two of my girls are really involved, and actually Jillian, our older daughter, got pretty involved this year too, helping out. But 4-H county fair, Black Hawk County, Iowa. Black Hawk County is a pretty urban county. It's big population-wise.
Right.
So you might think that the county fair is big, but it's not, because it's so urban. It's not rural. It's not ag.
Right.
And so it's actually kind of a podunk county fair. And I'm at this thing, and I'm observing my girls getting their calves ready, their chickens ready. I'm observing other families, getting ready to compete. And when I say compete, I mean that in loose terms, although some of these people take this way seriously. And I had just done this interview with the Boettgers about youth sports.
Yep.
And I'm seeing the same kind of behaviors, the same kind of like angst that is going from parents to their kids, because it matters so much to some of these parents that their kids look good, that their kids perform well, that they succeed. And we, of course, all want that for our kids. But, I saw some parents matter so much to them at county fair that they were doing all the work.
Right.
It's ready for the calf show, and a parent is preparing the calf. This is the kid's job. The whole purpose of 4-H is that they have this experience, but because the competition side of it, not looking bad in the eyes of their peers as a result of how their kids perform in the 4-H fair in podunk Black Hawk County, I saw an interaction between a parent and their child coming out of the show ring. Things hadn't gone very well, and there was just some anger, some bitterness toward the kid because they didn't do a couple things right that maybe would have gotten them a higher placement. It's just craziness.
So you're saying there's a fifth H for helicopter parents?
I tell you what, it's something that's been on my mind and that I've noticed for a few years now as my own kids have gotten involved in this stuff.
Yep.
And my big gripe is that Christians, people who profess to be Christians at least, seem to be no different than the rest of the world in the way they're approaching this, and that's what we want to address.
Yeah, and I think it comes across really clear, and I think it's, like I said, it's incredibly applicable for anybody in a not just in a sports atmosphere. It's what it comes down to is when your kids are when you're raising your kids, it's an opportunity. It's a series of opportunities. And it's up to you as a parent to decide what you're gonna do with those opportunities. Are you gonna take them and use them to effectively glorify yourself as the parent of a kid who's good at basketball or who raises the perfect cow or gets all their lines right on the stage, or are you gonna use it to build up the parent-child relationship and
really to develop them as men and women of God.
Exactly.
That's really what we're trying to do.
Use your influence then to point them to what matters. I was blessed to be a part of a home that definitely did it the right way.
Me too.
My sister was in the Waterloo Cedar Falls Symphony in high school, and I did really well in a couple things, and both my other sisters did really well, and it was never a bit of pressure from my parents to perform. It was always the we're just so happy to see you. We hope you're having fun.
Yeah,
and it was.
You helped coach Lego League.
I did, yeah.
Did you see any of this? I mean, that was young kids, and it's kind of laid back, but did you see any of that in there?
No, I wonder. So the natural progression out of Lego League is you go up into robotics and you as a team in high school build a robot.
I guarantee it's there.
I'm sure that there's some element of it there because those are competitions, and those are scholarships. And physics scholarships and computer science scholarships. And so I'm sure that, where there's money, there's going to be, there's going to be people that want to take advantage of it. Lego League, thankfully, especially among the third graders that I had, it was all about fun. And the parents that were there, were really just like, hey, thanks for hanging out with my kid, helping build some creativity, some teamwork, some, just stuff like that.
I've been trying to think what we're going to call this, and I haven't talked to you about it yet, but in light of it being much broader than sports, and we do talk a lot about sports because that's the Boettger's story.
Of course, yeah.
Something like Christian parenting through your kids' activities like youth sports or something like that.
Hopefully something a little like cleaner, a little catchier.
You can work on that.
I'm not sure either of us were poetry majors in college. So, we'll figure out something good to call it. But I really hope this hits a lot of ears because there are a lot of parents who either need to hear this. I was talking to my niece this morning and just telling her that this podcast is coming. She goes to Waterloo Christian, and so she knows Adrienne, and she was excited to hear about it too because she's in the middle trying to decide what activity she wants to pick up. She's excited about drama. She's not sure about basketball. She thinks she's going to do volleyball, and she's going to get something out of this too as a kid. So
for sure.
I hope this gets to a lot of people because there's a lot of people who could be encouraged, who could really get a lot out of this.
Just in that vein, hello to all the parents of the basketball players I coach at Waterloo Christian, and the girls volleyball team and basketball team that my daughter's involved in. I'm definitely sending it to you guys.
That's right.
And I hope you're having a good day. So, hey, thank you for listening. Tune in to CC Podcast Conversations. We got a bunch of other great content, and have a great day. Hey guys, it's the Boettgers. How are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Good to have you guys here. For people who've never tuned in before, I'm Matt Reister, and I'm with the CC Podcast. This is the CC Podcast Conversations. Tim knows that. Tim and Ike have been on it before. And Tim Boettger is actually our radio preacher for Christian Crusaders broadcast, which has been on the air since 1936. Going to take a little bit bigger role in 2024 because we got a guy retiring. How you doing, Timbo?
Doing great. Looking forward to that, and just fun to be a part of this here today again.
So we've been talking about this topic of youth sports for a while just amongst ourselves. Notice that there are some things. I've got kids in youth sports. You guys have played youth sports. You guys know what's going on, and I feel like it's just going crazy, and it's going off the rails. And kind of the thing that I'm actually just leaving from a basketball tournament today in Cedar Rapids to come back and do this interview. I'm going back after we're done. And you just get in the gym, and you start to watch some of these coaches and these parents and these players, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, things are off the rails a little bit.
The emotional energy, the time investment, the money investment, I don't even know how you'd quantify it. I mean, it is crazy. But, there's so much good in sports, but it's talking about perspective on it is a great topic we're on today.
For sure. And speaking of, I don't know how you quantify it, I've thought, man, we've got a shortage of gyms in this area, and if I had a couple $1 million, I'd probably build a few of them and start printing money. I mean, because parents aren't going to stop spending money on this stuff.
Right. Yeah, we just, Ike just hosted
You want to print money with me, Chris? Yeah. Let's go.
They just hosted a youth football camp. And it doubled in 1 year. And I stand on the sidelines and just listen to parents, coming in. And the tension, the nervousness, the excitement, all of this around performance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's just some great things to being under pressure in performance, and there can be some hard things.
So a couple things before we dive headlong into this topic. Number one, if you don't know this, Ike plays for the Buffalo Bills by way of the Iowa Hawkeyes. I think you're wearing a Hawkeye football shirt there. Yep. I'd like to see that. And we actually did a podcast interview with you. Can you believe it's been 3 years ago?
Yeah, that was fun, though.
It was. You and your dad and I. And Ike's story of how he got to Iowa and the NFL is one of the coolest stories of God directing someone's path. If you have not heard that podcast interview, you need to go and listen. It's episode 2. We did it way back in, I think, April or May of 2020. Mm-hmm. And we still, I got to tell you, actually, you guys know Nate Wheaton. He's a classmate of mine, good friend. He coaches football down at Fairfield. And shortly after we recorded that, he called me up. He said, Reister, a huge Hawkeye fan. He's got the Fry Bus with me.
Oh, okay.
And Reister, that interview you did with Tim and Ike was awesome. He had his entire team sit down during fall camp and listen to the whole thing because he's trying to build those kind of values into his kids. So anyway, a great interview. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on Ike's story right now because we've already got that pretty much documented in that podcast. Adrienne Boettger, sorry, yeah. That was a sports kind of.
Yeah. That's all good. I'm sitting here watching.
Yeah. I get to work with Adrienne at Waterloo Christian School. Adrienne is our development and advancement director. Yep. Why don't you tell people what you do over there?
Yeah, I work at Waterloo Christian School. I went in 4 years ago as the high school math teacher. And then I've kind of transitioned my role throughout, and now I'm the development director and advancement, which is all things fundraising, marketing, admissions, and then I get to teach 2 super fun elective classes, a Life Ready elective, which just meets once a week and is kind of random life skills. So Dad came in and talked about listening to the Holy Spirit. Ike came in and talked about sports and the impact of that.
My daughter Jillian said one of her favorites was you had someone come and show them how to change oil in their car.
Yeah, we did some general car maintenance. Mom talked about some business stuff. It's nice to have the family who can come in and speak for you.
That's awesome.
Keeps it cheap. And then some other different topics along. And then I'm starting this year an entrepreneurship class, which is going to be brand new with hopes of getting a little business rolling out of the back of a trailer.
And where we cross paths the most is during basketball season. Adrienne is the assistant girls basketball coach. I'm the head boys basketball coach, and we get to travel around Eastern Iowa together all winter long and watch these 1A kids try to play basketball.
Riding in a school bus.
Yes. Good times. So people don't know your story as well as they will know Ike's if they listen to episode number 2, that podcast I referred to. You were quite the basketball player at Wartburg College, a Division III school in Waverly, Iowa. I believe you're a first-team All-American, Division III. There's some debate as to whether or not you were the player of the year, but you were high up there at some level. So because we're going to be talking about sports and youth sports, I mean, it's kind of, I think I want to establish your credibility to speak about this from a high level.
Best athlete in the family.
Yeah.
Seriously?
That's what we get.
Do you really believe that?
Yeah, give it to her.
Okay.
I'll take it. D3 NFL, I'll take it.
I would just weigh in real quick on this. She, when she first started in basketball, Kris asked her if she would, when family came to watch, this is when she was real young, if she would go ahead and acknowledge that they were there and wave at them. So she took that to heart, and instead of actually playing basketball, she just ran up and down the court waving at the relatives. Chewing gum. So to make it to be a D1, a Division III All-American, which is top 10 in the country, basically at that level, from that, chewing gum and waving at relatives, I mean, that is a development process.
That's awesome.
And fun to watch. And I would say this, Adrienne, when Ike was getting recruited, he was getting recruited to play basketball. And we were burdened by, what level should we help? What should we do to help? And there's just some stress kind of at that point when you're late in high school, and that's a possibility.
And the reason there's stress is because from probably 8th or for sure 9th grade on, a number of his peers were traveling around the country to combines and camps and trying to be seen by colleges. And we never felt led to do any of that. So we never wanted to hinder our kids' development and opportunities for down the road, but that felt to our family very excessive. Also, how kids develop is so different physically. I mean, in 8th grade, some kids were completely through puberty, and I don't know if I could even spell puberty. I mean, we're just a late blooming family. So that's a big deal in sports, especially for strength and speed. And so just knowing and watching your kids' physical development, their emotional health, I mean, so many things play into athletics, right? So we were feeling a little bit like we better be praying about this because God knows our kiddos better than we do, and he wants them to win more than we do. And we never had a piece about the coast-to-coast deal until it was coming around to Ike's junior year. And he said, I really think I'd like to play basketball. That was when we felt like maybe we could make this happen. So anyway, but he was a junior. So, and then that's bucking a lot of peer and parent pressure.
For sure.
To hop on these all-star teams and go do your thing.
And what year would that have been? What was your junior year?
2012.
So, I mean, we're 11 years removed from that, and I would say it's only escalated since then.
Oh, it
I
just
agree.
keeps escalating.
Yeah.
And the battle in the middle of it for us as parents was, Christ is Lord of all. And how do you keep him Lord of your family and Lord of the sports? Because it's just constantly jockeying to take first place over Christ. And so I was on a run praying about Ike and his journey and what we should do and how much video should we get together and, all those things that are a part of it. And literally, I mean, you talk about being led by the Holy Spirit. Adrienne mentioned it. Sometimes you can hear things from God in your own spirit. And I came in and said it to Kris. I felt like as clear as I could hear in my spirit, the Lord communicated to me, your son will not play basketball, but your daughter will. And it was just that phrase.
Did he share that with you guys?
I wish he would have.
I
I was trying to decide.
I eventually did after she decided, but I didn't share it with either. The only one I shared it with was Kris, and she wrote it down.
You only told Adrienne after she said she was going to go play at Wartburg.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want it to influence.
Pressure her. And
Yeah.
we wanted, you test the spirits to see if it was from God. Now, it was that summer I got recruited to play football, and we watched Adrienne. You're talking about Adrienne's journey, her journey unfold to become the highest percentage. She was in the Hall of Fame for hanging, her jersey was hanging in there for a year because of her shot percentage as a post down there. I mean, I just want to say that
Layups aren't hard
the
to
gal
make.
who was chewing gum and waving at the relatives hangs, down there. And
I can tell you, I was in Cedar Rapids for one game at our team camp today, and layups are harder to make than you think. But I do remember you telling me, Adrienne, and you're really humble about this. You don't want a lot, and same with Ike. I mean, they don't want a lot of glory for this, but it is incredible. And I was kind of talking to you about it at one time. We were in a bus ride somewhere, and you're just like, I mean, if you just stand under the basket and they throw you and you lay it off the glass, it's not that hard. But I mean, there must be something to it. I mean, because there are a lot of college girls. Yeah.
I mean, and you're also, you're doing that with other gals hanging on you. Not all those gals are little.
No, that's right.
It's true.
So let's finish up with kind of your story, and then.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure that I wanted to play basketball. I wasn't sure that I wanted to do a sport. I even dabbled at rowing in Iowa a little bit.
I remember that.
I went to one camp, came back, just my hands just dripping blood from rowing. I'm like, I'm all right. I'll stick to basketball. And then I was really late to decide where I was going to go. And finally, it didn't feel, you'll get this feeling when you're on campus and you'll know when it's the right college. And I was like, I never had that. I just felt like I just picked. I liked the coaches, and I was like, let's just go with this. And so I walk into Wartburg. It's D3. I went to a big high school, so I'm thinking it's going to be similar. And the girls were so good. Way better than I thought and I was anticipating. And I walked onto a really good team who ended up making a big run in the NCAA tournament a couple times. So it was a high-caliber team, but I was still thinking, wow. So I kind of got humbled that first year and really sat on the bench. And I ended up, initially it was a little bit of a shock, and then I ended up having it, besides my senior year, my freshman year might have been my favorite year. I had a blast once I embraced my role on the team.
That's so key. Kids, listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was like, okay, this is where I'm at this year. We were doing cheers. I was having fun with the coaches. We were leading different.
They do that at the NFL. Cheers on the sideline.
It's more of a gal thing. Yeah. So then anything after that year kind of felt like this is fun to play too. And then all the way up to my senior year where I had a pretty good year. But to go from really not playing to being pretty good, it was a journey of all the stages and all the roles that you can get to on a team. And I look back and have like such fond memories of playing basketball. And not everyone does that with their college sports. But there was a lot of hard games, there was hard seasons, there was, you're discouraged, you feel like you should be getting more than you're not. And then my time came my senior year, and I didn't know if it ever was, and I was going to be fine with it. And then when it did, it was just like, I could not believe what was happening. It had to be really from the Lord. Yeah. Because, I practiced some, but
one of the notes, and I'm gonna jot.
I just interrupt. I'm just gonna throw in this here. Adrienne, we would be in the summer, and she would do a little pickup basketball, not much. She was getting a little tired. It's a lot of basketball from like fourth grade on, and I said, Adrienne, you want to just go out and kind of pop in some free throws just for the home team? She goes, I think it's going to be mental reps today.
But here's the truth. Here is the truth. From junior year to senior year. Junior year, I was good, but I wasn't like best in the conference, best in the country good. And I don't know if my coaches know that. I did not practice junior year to senior year. I'm just going to change the way I think about basketball. And I started reading some things. I kind of grew in my relationship with the Lord. And the only thing that changed was my mind. And my mind was like, I'm going to dominate this year. Wow. We graduated a lot of really good players, and really no one expected a ton. And every time before a game, I'm like, I'm going to dominate. Foul me. I'm making my layups. I'm doing everything. And then I'd miss a shot and I'd be like, that's weird. I'm going to make the next one. I mean, I'm thinking these things versus in the past it had been, better not take another one. I just missed it. And
a position of kind of insecurity versus a position of confidence.
Positive thinking.
And a confidence where it's like, my teammates didn't know I was doing, it was just more internal, like, this is how I'm playing this year. And that was the only change.
Wow.
And you guys got to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, we went to the Elite Eight that year, and we had graduated like 3 or 4 starters.
That was fun.
And that was the year you shot the highest percentage.
That was, yeah.
And just think of that in terms of what sports can do, what it taught her there, to think positive, to believe, to have hope, to have a short memory of mistakes. I mean, it's hard to learn that in something besides sport where it's happening so fast.
We're going to get to listing several positives from sports here in a second. That's really good stuff. I was just remembering when you went to the Elite Eight, at some point during that, we came up and watched a couple of your games during the tournament, and we actually have a picture of you and Jillian.
Yeah, she looked
she
so
was
young.
Like in maybe 8th grade or something, or whatever, maybe even younger than that. And now you coach her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool how the look. The other, I'm going to write notes down from time to time to remind myself of what I want to say. But Ike's story and your story, when I hear more about it, are like, if the Lord's going to do it, it's going to happen. And if he's not, it's not. And with this whole youth sports craze, I see a bunch of people trying to force and scheme and kind of orchestrate this perfect scenario so that their son can go play professional sports or so their daughter can be All-American. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So,
Ike, you might have something to say about that, because I've heard you talk about that. It's sort of this tension, a cooperative effort. It's like you don't get to the NFL because you spent your summers on the couch.
Yeah.
But if God didn't have it in mind for you as hard as you worked, I mean, isn't it kind of a hand in hand?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, it's just genetics, number one. You have to have a certain genetic makeup. So
good job, guys.
You got to say thanks for that. And I see that a lot. Like, what can my kid do to go professional in a sport? It's like nothing. There's not. So you got to have a certain level, and then if you have a certain level, then you have to put in work, and then there's levels to that.
Yeah.
And you can make up a lot of ground
working,
and taking care of your body and doing the right things. But yeah, like Adrienne said, it's if the Lord wants it to happen, it's going to happen, and He's going to make a path for you to get to wherever He wants to get you, to use you however He wants to use you.
And even like, I'm not a professional athlete, but there are things that I've had some success at in my life. And even when I evaluate that, I worked hard. Yeah, I took advantage of opportunities. But I even think that the Lord gives me the motivation to work hard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So, I mean, it is hand in hand.
Yeah.
But even the hand that you're playing is inspired by the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting that, when I got recruited by the Hawkeyes, we were driving home, and this just kind of exemplifies that. I was just looking at it fully from the perspective of the sovereignty of God. Like, and I said this to him in the car, just when we were near home. I said, man, can you believe how the Lord arranged that for you to be recruited? And Ike's sitting in the car beside me.
Well, you said it like 5 times. And Ike was like, yep, he did. Yeah. About the 5th time, Ike.
What did you say, Ike? You piped in, you remember?
You go.
He said, yeah, Dad, he said, but I've worked pretty hard, too. And I stood there. I just sat there in check saying, it's totally right.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
And that's out of Philippians. I just gave a message on it. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you. It's just, our whole life is that way.
Yes.
And parents need to embrace that reality and try to involve God far more than so many of them are.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember parents are jockeying, like you said. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Ike was on All-Star team, and the Lord literally sat me down in the living room and said, it's time for him to be done. I mean, it made no sense whatsoever. But the dynamics of the team and such were there.
Basketball?
Yeah, basketball.
In elementary, late elementary.
And it was so clear, the Holy Spirit.
Like a travel team, a
Yeah.
club team.
Yeah.
It was very local. It was in Iowa. They did a Bible study at the beginning. The coaches were great. There was not a negative thing. I was starting every game, learning a lot. There was nothing to make you think, we should get him off this team. It was literally...
In fact, if you were thinking superficially,
Yeah.
as Christians, you go, well, they have a Bible study.
Totally
Yeah.
So
worldly.
he needs to be on this team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just for excelling as good as he can. But God cares about far more than just sports. He cares about the development of children, the family dynamic, what the cost is on the family,
Emotions.
emotional life, maturity in all of life. And when it becomes an idol, a lot of that stuff goes out the window.
So you guys are here for basically two reasons, maybe more, but two that I can identify. One is you're a sports family at the highest level. I mean, this is not Caitlin Clark and Josh Allen, but it's the closest thing that we're going to get to. It's way beyond where 99.5 to 0.9% of us are ever going to be. And so there's some credibility there. The second reason is just because y'all need to keep me in check on this topic, because I could go off on a tirade that might not end up being helpful. Because I just see this youth sports behemoth, in an increasingly critical way. And I know that you guys will provide some balance to that. To mitigate the chance of us being terribly critical, or me being terribly critical, I want to start with, what are the positives from being involved in sports? What are the positives that you see as parents who are trying to develop your kids to be ambassadors for Christ? What are the positives for athletes who are trying to become ambassadors for Christ, or however you want to say that? There are a lot of positives.
Yeah, I'll start. We've talked about it, but just the work that it takes to, set a goal, write goals down, and then work towards that. I mean, that's applicable to anything in life. So you're going to do that in sport, whether it's your off-season training or, how many points you're trying to score, trying to win the game. Obviously, you're trying to win every game, but personal goals, team goals. I'm still obviously playing football, but you look around the world, and that's really what's happening in the world is people are setting goals, trying to accomplish them. So getting a routine that works for you to accomplish that goal, whenever I'm done playing football, I'm going to have the blueprint for that. To do that, you see a lot of former athletes be successful in business because they know how to do that. They've done that their whole life. I guess I won't steal anything else.
I would just jump on that. I wrote down these words. The vision. Sports provides automatic vision because you have goal. You want to accomplish something. You want to be good at it. You want to reach a certain level, which leads to discipline. I mean, people with no vision, they don't restrain themselves. But a vision, you restrain yourselves in a certain direction. And then that discipline ultimately leads to confidence. And what I've seen, the confidence in the two of you in all of life, because of vision and discipline and development and growth and the confidence that comes out of it, I mean, that is huge. And that we were looking forward to. We wanted sports to do that for you guys. And it has, and it's not just confidence in sports, it's in all of life. And that goes into letting them handle the challenges in the sports that they encounter instead of parents getting in there and trying to manipulate it for them. Because then the kids miss out on the possibility to grow. And
I want to tell a story about that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
To jump in. Mason Reister, late bloomer. Gosh, he grew like 6 inches after his senior year, and we could assure you, he's a much better basketball player than he ever was in high school because he just kept playing. But anyway, he's like in junior high, 7th or 8th grade. I mean, just a pipsqueak and just skinny and short. And of course, we're at Waterloo Christian. Pipsqueak, is that funny? I mean, he was. And we're playing Holmes Junior High. One of the big public junior highs in town, and literally they have like 40 kids out on their 7th grade team, and our 7th and 8th grade team is playing their 7th grade team. Mm-hmm. And it's just like it's like a line change in hockey. I mean, it's just 5 in, 5 out, boom, boom, boom. And we played like 6 quarters, and we got like 7 guys, and Mason's in the top 5 somehow. And he's out there, and he knows a bunch of these kids from church and from around town. And it's a little humiliating. Mm-hmm. I mean, just even being in the gym with them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because these kids are good basketball players for their age. our kids are just the most ragtag patched together group of kids. You know, jerseys didn't even match. Maybe, I'm not sure. We've got that fixed since then. And he's playing defense on one of his buddies. The gym's full, you know, all the girlfriends of the 8th grade boys and all this stupid stuff. And it's at Holmes. And Mason's playing defense on this kid. I can picture it just like it happened yesterday. And I'm not coaching. I'm in the stands as a parent. And Mason gets juked, and they call it, he got his ankles broke, right? And so he falls down, and the entire gym's like, oh, because now breaking a kid's ankles matters more than making a layup, which boggles my mind. But anyway, you know, these kids go absolutely nuts about this. Mason looks pretty foolish. It's embarrassing. It's very you know, these kids who are his peers are like yelling. It's publicly humiliating. And, you know, my first reaction is like, I want to just protect him from that. Like, oh gosh, I wish that wouldn't have happened. But literally about 2 seconds after that feeling rose up in me, it was like, you know what? I'm so glad that happened. Because where else in today's culture, which is increasingly kind of like marshmallowy and protective and insulating.
Bubbling.
Yeah. Where else in today's culture can you take the training wheels off when it comes to public humiliation and just kind of being embarrassed and failing?
Yeah.
And the thing is if our kids are going to have an impact for Christ, if they're going to stay faithful to the Word of God, I mean, Tim, we know this. I mean, we all know this, but we've been walking this path a little bit. You are going to take shots, and it's going to be way worse than getting yelled at by a crowd full of 8th graders. It's going to be painful, right? And it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And you had a chance to start to learn that it's okay to fail and be humiliated.
Get back up and
in 8th grade basketball.
In it. Yeah.
That's a huge, for me, that's one of the top benefits of sports, learning to fail.
I would add on to that too is if parents will be parents and coach their kids in a sense in life versus in the sport, then I remember when Adrienne was in at Wartburg, and it was maybe her second year, and she wanted a little more playing time, and she didn't know where she was at the bubble, and she was talking to us about it, and we said, hey, you know, even at the college level, parents can be out of control. We said to her, you got to go have a meeting. It's time for you to go have a meeting. Do you remember this, Adrienne? And you took your first meeting in with the coaching staff at the college level, and that was a huge maturing growth step for you, forced into that because you were in this place where you were irritated and you didn't know what to do, and you had to figure out how to handle it relationally with authority in your life. Right. And I remember when I got recruited, they do a home visit, and Reese Morgan and Kirk were at our house, and I said, I asked him, what's Kirk Ferentz, what's the biggest challenge in sports and at your position right now? He didn't blink an eye. He said the parents.
Really?
The parents at the college level. I mean, so it starts in that little youth level, and it doesn't end. I mean, this idolatry of sports from parents it's crazy. So, but we're staying on the positive in the middle of that.
Can I just back up? So I remember, Adrienne, do you remember that meeting? You basically went in and said, what can I do to get better? I'd like to see a few more minutes. It wasn't, I'm really mad. I feel like I should play more. What's wrong with you? It's like, what's wrong with me? Like, how can I grow? And we didn't tell you. You came up with that. And Dad and I were like, we were so proud of that, you know? And they told you a few things you could work on, and then you did.
Yeah.
And
it didn't change right after the meeting.
Right.
And I didn't really expect it to. But they gave me something to work towards.
And you got it off your chest.
And then, okay, they know how I'm feeling. Now I got some work to do. And then you do it, and then I played more. Right? So it wasn't like I wasn't pouting during practice. I wasn't like no one on the team knew I had this meeting. Because my team and how I felt about my teammates and how I encouraged them didn't change. But after, I knew what I needed to do on the inside. And Mom and Dad didn't act any differently. I mean, it's just, it depends how you approach it. You can't just, and I approached my coaches, I think, once in my life, like of all levels.
In that way, yeah.
In that way, that was the one time. Because it felt like I felt like I was being maybe overlooked because I had been such a good team player. And now, they saw things that I didn't see. But if I would have gone in every other week, that doesn't help.
What other positives?
Well, I want to point this out. You know, you talk about Adrienne maturing in that way. Ike has had to go through some real dips in sports, and you know the crashing of dreams teaches you things. You know, how quickly can a dream get taken away? Not very many places like it can in sports.
You're talking about injuries primarily.
Injuries, yeah, those kind of things. And so, I mean, the things that have developed in him, I mean, you can comment on that, Ike.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, you look at just my career, I've had my 2 biggest years of my career in terms of like career furthering, you know, contract year, my 2 contract years, I have the worst possible injury that you can have. So, and a lot of people look at that like, you know, that's brutal, but, you know, most people don't really feel bad for you because you're in the NFL. I definitely don't feel bad for myself, ever. But to some people, it's like, how do you handle that, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, I just appreciate the lessons that I've learned from it. So it had been probably 2 years ago. I was fully healthy going into camp, and I got sick, got some heat exhaustion, had a pretty rough year getting started, and then started like, I think 10 or 11 games right in a row. Then I did my Achilles that I missed all of last year, and then obviously my senior year at Iowa, I did the other Achilles. So 2 biggest years for my career, and just the stuff that I've learned about myself and the person, the man, the dad, the husband that I am now, compared to looking back 2 years ago, I'm like 10, 20 times better, in my opinion.
I think about King David in the Bible, that whole account of him killing Goliath. And you remember there's that part where it says he learned the faithfulness of God when he was protecting sheep. And when a bear or a lion came, the Lord allowed him to just kill off a sheep. So David learned on a smaller scale, in a smaller venue, to learn to trust the Lord, so that when his time to shine with Goliath was there, he's like, Lord's got this. So one of my questions for you is because you had an ankle injury too in college, right?
Yeah.
That kind of plagued you. I don't remember which season that was.
It was 5th when we went undefeated, halfway through that undefeated season. So that was going to...
The Rose Bowl year.
Yeah, it was a fun year, but I missed the second half because I had an ankle injury.
So and did you have any injuries like that in high school that were long-term?
I had a little back thing that... I mean, I missed probably a quarter of my junior season when I was playing quarterback, but I came back for the playoffs. It wasn't nothing serious.
So how would you say that those injuries, even back at Iowa early on, equipped you to deal with what might be viewed as higher magnitude injuries, just because you're in the NFL now? Now we're talking about a paycheck. Now we're talking about higher profile.
Yeah, I mean, football is 100% injury rate, so you know you're going to have something. But I've been able to play through a lot of stuff. You can always play through a lot of stuff, but when you have a season-ending injury and you have to learn how to walk and do all that again, and then I had some hiccups with the first surgery this last time and had to basically restart that whole process. I mean, that was tough, especially when I was, singular. If it was just me and Katie, it'd been much easier. But, having 2 young kids, you don't get to spend as much time with them and do all the stuff that you'd like to do with them, just because you can't walk around. You're on a scooter and you're really focused on rehab, and then you're stuck in the training room all year. So you got a lot of alone time, and I think that just that alone really strengthened my relationship with the Lord, and that's obviously what He wanted. And
so I mean, that's another positive. Going through the ups and downs that come with being in sports, because when you're 20 years down the road, and whatever the crisis is that's not sports related comes into your life, that's bigger than anything you dealt with before, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're going to be equipped. I mean, you're going to go, the Lord's got this. I've been through adversity before.
Yeah, 100%.
Even as Ike's talking there, I'm thinking back to when Kirk Ferentz was at our house, we asked him what's the best thing we could do as parents, and would he give us any advice? And he said just that. He said sports is going to have a lot of ups and downs. He said, and if you're a parent that stays right here, steady, And when they're down, you're down encouraging them, but you're not down with them. And when they're up, you're still down here because they're going to come back down. You celebrate with them, but you don't get too up with them. You don't get too down with them.
That is so Kirk Ferentz.
Isn't that right?
I mean, Kirk Ferentz is like this.
But I'm telling you, that's great advice for parents.
It is.
Because the
love
kids
it.
need a parent, a stable, to represent the stability of God in their lives. They don't need someone zigzag. Sports is emotional. And when you're at a level, okay, you hurt your back in high school, but then you're in your senior year, you're slated to go in the draft, and you tear an Achilles and you fall out of the draft and you get picked up after. That's a huge adjustment mentally and emotionally. It's huge. And to see Ike walk through that and trust the sovereignty of God, that's a lesson that you can't provide. Only God can. And then the same thing happened now in a contract year. He's there, he's lined up, he's starting, he's going to be a free agent, tears his Achilles, and the guy behind him gets contract. You know what I mean? And he starts all over working through that. And to watch him go through that and learn that spiritually, to me, that is just powerful as a dad. And that's looking at it from a spiritual point of view, not a worldly point of view.
Which, if we're Christians, that's what you're looking at it from.
That's it. Yeah. And that's what, if we can say anything to parents out there right now, you're called by God to help shape your kids' mind and allow him to shape their minds in a biblical worldview. You know what I mean? Look at life from a spiritual, in the unseen realm. And not get caught up in the seen realm. God can handle the seen realm.
I just thought of another positive that maybe you two can speak to. And I can a little bit. I mean, we're at a Christian school, so it's expected that the coach is going to lead Bible studies and lead prayer and teach biblical lessons throughout the season and during practices and stuff. But athletics gives us an excuse to gather together and go after a common goal that then when you insert a believer into, they have a platform. Just because these people who are around them, who maybe aren't all Christian, even at a Christian school, I don't think all our kids are Christians, they get to be in this environment where there are believers, whether it's Christian school basketball team, whether it's Wartburg College, church school, where a lot of people don't know Christ, or in the NFL certainly. It gives, so a positive of sports would be, it gives Christians a place or a
platform
to influence people for Christ. What's that been like for you guys?
When, at least to start, when people know that your identity isn't in the sport, and they won't think that that's what they're seeing, but when they see that you lose, maybe you lose a game or you don't have a great game and you're kind of just a consistent person in the locker room and on campus, and you're encouraging, and it's more of it's mental with all sports, but especially girls. Like, they get high, they get low, they're emotional, they shut down. And one of the greatest things the Lord helped me with was my mind, and like being able to control my thoughts, and not some like secular control your mind, but know where you find your value and then have confidence in what you can do. People start to just hang around you, and they don't, and Ike and I would probably be the same in this. We don't go in there and blessing people and talking about
quoting
the
Bible
Lord
verses.
And quoting Bible verses, and people don't really know why they want to hang around you, but then like coaches start to have you meet with every freshman, and then they say, hey, could you do kind of every tour that comes in, and maybe people don't know why it is, but it's because you know who you are in the Lord, and then people on the team like to be around that. So you get to have an impact without even really talking about the Lord. And then maybe your senior year, when everyone, like, what you say kind of matters to them, and you have some ground and they know that you care about them, you can
speak into their life. But and Ike would say the same probably with how you operated with the Lord, and kind of what turns people off versus just the way you live, and how that can have a huge impact.
Yeah, I mean, it would, I know Mom and Dad even remember when I was growing up, it would be, I don't know how to word it other than like the kids that are just too Christian. Like, they're like throwing it at everybody all the time, and you throw a lot of people that are maybe open to it completely off, and they're completely turned off because they feel like they're being judged and kind of
preached at
and preached at all the
proselytized,
time. And I've just never, I've had awesome talks with guys that never would have received that, but I've become really good friends with them, especially in the NFL. been able to have amazing conversations with them about their relationship with the Lord, if they have it, if they had it and lost it, if they're working towards it. And it really comes from what Adrienne said, is just if you are consistent and you know who you are every day, they're going to trust you, first of all, because they're not going to be like, how's he going to react to this? And then, they might be going through something or have questions about something. They come right up and it's open dialogue instantly. And that's just so many things with just having a biblical worldview. There's so many questions, especially now. Something happens. We're talking about all sorts of, the stuff that we talk about is insane in the locker room. But if you have a biblical worldview, kind of like bringing it back to reality, and this is just random, but our head coach is like, he lets everybody be themselves. And I love this analogy he gives. We just build a fence around what you can and can't do as a person, as a player. We just give you the guidelines, and it's pretty wide. You can be yourself as long as you just stay within the fence. And I think that's something that's huge for guys, so they're not feeling like they're controlled or ruled. And especially in the NFL, there's a lot of freedom that guys have, and you want to give them that freedom, not put your finger on them. But kind of telling guys like you can. That's what the Lord provides you in life. He just provides you framework. Everybody needs a little framework to stay in. But if you don't have framework, if we can't even, the thing that we were talking about this time was, if we can't say what a boy and a girl is, like, what are we even talking about? Like, where can we even start morals or anything if we're not even going to agree on that? Like, what is 2 + 2? I don't know. If you can't tell me that, then I don't know if you can tell me that. So that was our discussion, and using that, since the coach had talked about it in a team meeting, and I just said, like, that's, and it really connected with a lot of guys, because everybody wants a little direction. It starts when you're a baby. It starts when you're a kid. Like, you need your parents to be helping guide you. You don't know what the heck's going on. So just kind of piggybacking on what Adrienne said, but I think that's been something that's cool.
When a Christian gets injected into an environment where those conversations are being had, and you can represent the truth.
Yeah.
That's way cool. That's a huge positive.
Totally, and we've enjoyed watching these two do that, and prayed that they would have opportunities to do it. And not only that, what they're talking about is internally in a small way, but I would just also highlight when you excel in sports, because the world values sports so much, you get public platforms all the time. And then they approach it the same way. You don't want to be that Bible beating person, but you also don't want to ever shrink back from saying, hey, this is Almighty God. He does this work in and through us.
And I think the people that are a little bit more like the people who you guys aren't, I think the Lord uses them in a unique way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm thinking the one who pops to my mind from kind of back in my generation is Kurt Warner.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner was, every time a microphone was in front of his face, he'd praise the Lord, thank Jesus, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I was listening carefully to what Ike just said, and he's talking about representing a biblical worldview when the opportunity presents itself. Well, there's nothing squishy about that.
No.
It's just a different personality, a different style.
And you see that in the Bible. Peter versus James versus John, how they carried it, so different,
Let's turn the corner to specifically this youth sports. I would call it epidemic or pandemic or something. And I can just confess this. I have a few specific people in my mind who I obviously am not going to name, who need to hear some of this stuff. And there's a lot more. They're just kind of representations of the population. And I'm specifically, because I'm a dad, I'm thinking of dads who I think care way too much about how their elementary age or junior high age or even high school age kid performs on the athletic field. And again, I love sports. We all love sports. We all see the value of sports. We've hopefully established that. But it's like, I don't see a lot of difference between people who profess to be followers of Christ and the rest of the world on this topic. And honestly, I expect people who don't know Christ to go crazy with it. I expect that. I expect people to take it out of proportion, put unnecessary pressure on their kids, put too much value on performance versus establishing their identity in something more stable. I expect that from non-believing people. But from Christians, when I see that, it's just like, man, we got to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll just start with a story from, I think, this last year. The girls, the WAGs, they call them wives and girlfriends in Buffalo, all get together a couple times a week at Bible study, and they get together for coffee, dinner, whatever. And the discussion of, this is just to tell you where mom and dad are at and how Adrienne and I grew up with them around sports. And, the parents, it doesn't get better. I mean, in the NFL, you still have moms and dads that are out of control.
Seriously.
And the way it shows its face there is, you have the like, I'm married to Katie. So a lot of the time, Katie and my mom or Katie and my dad, they wouldn't get along because they are still pretty possessive of the NFL player, and their identity is still in me. That's not how it is at all, but that's how it is for a lot of these wives and girlfriends.
I never thought of that.
It gets brought up, and they went around, and basically all of them were saying, they were coming to town, their husband or boyfriend's parents were coming to town, or mom was coming to town. They weren't very excited about it because they had to, and it's just like a competition almost. It's very weird. And
What do you mean a
Katie's,
competition?
like the wives and girlfriends kind of competing with the mom, like for their son's attention.
Oh, okay.
Is it money? Or is it?
It's money. It's the status of it. The prestige. Like they kind of wish they were able to live her life.
It's your flipping kid. I mean, be proud of him and leave it alone. You know what I mean?
It's brutal. It's brutal. So, Katie, they got around the table to Katie, and Katie was like, "Yeah, Ike's mom, she actually can't stand football."
I love it.
She wishes I would have quit playing football before I even started. So that was like the opposite. And then, she goes on to tell him that, because I've told Katie how it was for us growing up. Mom and dad were, you can play whatever sport you'd like, but you're going to finish it. You're not going to quit halfway through. You're going to give your all at it, but at the end of the day, that's not what your identity's in. And
if you don't want to play next
season, that's fine. They're not putting any pressure on it, and just try out different stuff. And now, that people ask me all the time, like, are you going to have Clay play football? I'm like, I don't know. If he wants to.
Right.
I don't care. If he enjoys it and wants to play it, absolutely.
Before you share whatever you're going to share, I just want to highlight this. Like, this is the kind of contrast that we need as the body to be putting on display in this area. I mean, I'm imagining, I don't know what it's like in this house where this Bible study is happening and these women are going around. I mean, I think is probably a jaw-dropping statement for Katie to say, yeah, Ike's mom doesn't even like football. It's so contrary to everything else that's being said. And I mean, you don't need to be contrary for the sake of being contrary. But if we're truly going to live in relationship with the Lord and walk by the Spirit, there are going to be things about us that are just radically different, right? And if that's not happening at different places, I think we need to go, what's wrong here? Do you agree with that?
Can I just jump in on that?
Yeah.
A little different, but when I was praying, I was almost inconsolable when Ike texted that the Hawkeye coaches were coming to the high school to meet with him and Ross Pierschbacher.
You moron. No, I'm kidding.
And I run out of the barn. The barn wasn't open, the little store I own. And
Barn Happy, check it out online.
I was just doing something in there, and I ran out, and I was panicked.
I was working outside.
And I said, Tim, we have to pray. We have to pray. And he's like, why? I'm like, because the Hawkeyes are going to the high school, and I just have this bad feeling. He looked at me like I was an absolute unicorn. He goes, you can pray. So I lit into this prayer beseeching the Lord. I'm like, Lord, he's good at basketball, and on and on. Anyway, I go back into the barn by myself, and you know how the Holy Spirit whispers things to you? Here it is, mothers. Here it is. The Lord said, he is mine, and you will not control him.
Wow.
at which point I bawled my eyes out.
Yeah.
Bawled my eyes out. I'm like, okay. And then I'm bargaining with God. I'm like, okay, God, I got it. So he's not mine. I won't control him, but can he still play basketball?
Or could he be the kicker?
Could he be the kicker? Like, I'm like, okay, I got that message. That was certainly clear. So, okay, are we good now? And then when he got offered in 2 days, it was a journey for me for 2 years with my quiet times with the Lord because of a fear of the injuries is what was driving my wanting to control.
Which happened?
Oh, yeah. And after his Achilles tear, I said, Lord, typically all I do is pray for his safety pretty much every snap. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't even feel like you're hearing me. I said, I don't even know what to pray. I said, now he's hurt again. And I always was assured it was like, okay, it's a leg, it heals. Mm-hmm. Like I always took comfort in that, like the Lord is
being gracious,
right? And then the next really clear thing he said was, how about pray, thy will be done?
That's big boy pants.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, it's still not about me. Doggone it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I've had to learn so many lessons because of his football career and that I would have never seen coming. Mm-hmm. Not so much with the basketball because of the lesser injury. Even though Adrienne had 12 pounds of tape on her ankles her senior year. She'd be off the court. We're like, what happened to Adrienne? Oh, she's getting those ankles taped. I'm like, that feels good. So anyway.
I would just add to this, the opportunity for parents to actually just grow up and be parents.
Yeah.
In our culture right now, it's just there. If you want to seek God in it and you want to try and mature spiritually and then also help channel your kids' life to mature spiritually and involved in sports, it's there if you'll seek God in it. I mean, it has grown us up so much. I mean, we could spend hours talking about how we've had to mature as individuals, watching, releasing, interacting with our kids. And what we want for them is for them to live into all God has for them, not what we want for them. And still pray for that. I mean,
I have a great story. Ike was going into his senior year of basketball and being a post and a big kind of tough kid underneath, you're always muscling, pushing, it's a rough, they're both posts. I always think if there's basketball post moms, there could be a support group. They work their tail off, and they're at everybody's mercy to give them the ball. Yeah. And they get 3 kids filing them, and they don't get called, but then they throw a toenail, and they get whistled.
Yeah.
That ain't it. But anyway, I was like, Ike, when you go to the line, they're going to foul you, because, well, I don't know what your free throw percentage is, but they know it's, you're not a 3-point shooter. So anyway, and a lot of times Ike's ball was just a little flat because he'd been working so hard. It's hard to work that hard and then run to the free throw line and lay in something soft. Yeah. So it would come a little hard. So anyway, I just thought I'm going to do something really helpful here. And to be fair, Ike, had I ever been critical one time of anything you'd done in 18 years? I mean, I was always like, good game. That was fun. I mean, I wasn't like a coach 'em up mom ever. Yeah. Just saying that. Because I did play 6-on-6 basketball. Not very well, so I didn't feel like I had a lot of tips. But I thought I had one here, and I was going to share it. And I said, hey, when you get to the line, remember the rainbow. I said, just put that in with a nice little arch, because every time you arch that ball, it's a swish. I said, but when you don't arch, they can kind of go thump. And he looked at me. His expression on his face didn't change. He goes, Mom, if that's the last thing you ever say to me about basketball, that would be good. And I went, yep. Okay, he goes, I've got like 5 coaches, and you're my mom.
Yeah.
And I was so thankful he could put into words exactly how he felt when I said that. Like, can you just be my mom?
Yeah.
It was probably a pretty good idea, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, now you say remember the rainbow.
When I get down to Cedar Rapids tonight, I'm going to mention that to a couple of my guys.
Well, I would add this,
God's rainbow.
God's rainbow. God's rainbow.
This would be just encouragement to parents is be self-reflective about how your kids might be experiencing you. I mean, that's where this started for me. Ike was in third grade. He was playing in a tournament down in Tama, Iowa. Third grade, mind you. I'm in the front row of the bleachers, screaming at him about needing to be a little stronger and a little more stable down low and asking for the ball. Third grade. And he looked at me from the court like a third grader would. Like, Dad, I'm doing the best I can.
And what happened to you?
And in that moment was a check in my spirit where I started to get very self-reflective about how my kids are going to experience me as their dad around the arena of sports. And that's where I decided, and this is what we could coach up, for parents now. Picky positive. Be picky positive with your kids.
What do you mean by picky positive?
Pick out little things that they're doing well, whatever level of play they're at, and reward them with the positive. Just stay away from the negative. They know, the kids know what's going on in the sports arena, how they measure up for the most part. And if they don't, they're going to figure it out. They're going to get humbled. So be picky positive. Tell them you're excited to watch them play. Tell them it was fun to watch them play after, no matter how good they did, and pick out something good that they did. And
it's magical. They'll build.
Yes.
They'll build on that. You pick them apart, and they'll just get worse and worse and worse.
More performance anxiety and stress, and you'll burn them out, and they won't like sports, and it's happening all the time.
They'll act like they're sleeping when you get home, so you don't talk to them.
Yeah, they'll want to ride home with somebody else. I mean, we've heard all these things.
Yeah, it's out there.
A friend of mine coaches basketball. He's had pretty decent success at the high school level in Iowa. And we were having dinner one night, and he just said, I asked him kind of the question that you said about Clay. A lot of people ask, like, so is your son you going to stick around until your son plays basketball for you or something like that? He's like, I don't know. He said if he's into it, yeah. And if not, he said, I'm not going to put a whole lot of pressure on him. And this conversation developed into what he is noticing with this youth sports craze. I mean, you talk about starting in third grade. That's so early. I mean, Kid Mason played tackle football in fourth grade. I mean, it's and you got these baseball teams, and everyone's, like we said, jockeying. And if my kid doesn't, I had one guy tell me once, my kid needs to go to this certain school because these are the kids who are going to play varsity basketball, 8 years later, and they need to get some chemistry built on the playground at recess. Like, this is in fourth grade. Like, and this is a dad. You're an adult man, and you're saying this stuff. Like, what are you talking about? But so this coach friend of mine, he just said that so many of the best athletes that he would have access to are burnt out, and they're not playing anymore by the time they get to high school because their dads have just wore them down, and the schedule and the kids playing on 4 club teams. And the whole thing is someone's trying to scheme and jockey their way to the all-star team so that you go to this tournament where these D1 coaches are at, and then you get noticed, and then maybe you'll get an offer. It's just so foolish, I think.
Well, it's out of control. And even as you're talking, I'm just thinking about, even when I was just, 40 years ago, a lot of guys had chores on the farm where I grew up. They had other things to do. Currently, there's a lot of kids in town, they don't have much else to do. So being involved in sports at one level is good, you know what I mean, when you're younger, and taking up time and energy. But to be sure, the guy who was mature on my 5th grade team never grew again.
Yeah.
And he was the best player in 5th grade, and by the senior, you cannot predict it. I don't care what they're saying at 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, it's irrelevant. And because of maturity and growth. And would you think Ike's going to be a lineman in the NFL? I mean,
quarterback in high school, recruited as tight end.
Yeah.
And then O-line.
And so
the Iowa way, by the way.
So let your kids be kids, and let them develop a full enjoyment of life outside of sports as well as sports. And then as they mature and get a little later, then you can maybe help guide it as a parent more. But we do need some balance in it.
And at the end of the day, it has to still be fun. I mean, Adrienne took a slogan to Wartburg: if it's fun, it gets done. You know, because when the girls stopped having fun, they stopped winning. And then the minute they started goofing around and having fun, they started winning. Ike feels the same way. He said, I try to have fun every day. I mean, there's days that aren't, you know, giggling. But, I mean, it's a game. You got to play this game, right?
I was going to add, it's one thing, like you were talking about, it's one thing to get burnt out and you don't even make it to high school sports, you don't make it to college sports because you're emotionally burnt out, your body's burnt out. Who cares that you didn't make it? It doesn't matter. No one cares that I was an All-American. And no one cares. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's his job right now, right? But at the end, it doesn't matter. It's another thing to not have a relationship with your parents. Like, it's okay, you got burnt out and you didn't play. But now you have 50 years of being hurt from your dad because he cared too much about it.
Yes.
And you don't know who you are. So it's like, we saw people come in and you'd see people in college like, you have this ability that now is going to waste, which is a bummer, but it doesn't even compare to the relationship now that you have to try to build back as a dad or as a mom for the next.
And maybe soul wounds to heal from.
Yeah.
I mean, identity issues and all that stuff, which are far deeper than the disappointment of a sport.
Because anything your parents say to you, when you're, especially in high school, you're going to remember. I don't care if they heard you yell it at the ref or they heard you raise your voice during a game. They remember, and it's a little like, oh, dad thinks this is important. And usually it's dads. And then does dad, after the game, tell you good things? Is he quiet? Because quiet says things too.
He's pissed off. He didn't have a good game.
You didn't have a good game. He thinks, or, and then what do you do when you graduate? And what do you do when how do you view your dad? Because of sports, which is a way bigger deal.
And so this is where I start to like go nuts because you're claiming out of your mouth that you are a follower of Christ. And that this is the most important. If you filled out the test question, you'd say the most important thing in my life is Jesus or my faith or whatever. But then all this stuff is indicating that that's not actually true. Actually, you care more about your 1A Iowa Star Conference, 7th guy on the team basketball player. And your kid, that is a major problem. And not only are you going to have, like you said, potentially soul wounds, but now we've got a discipleship issue because these kids.
Well, and God has told those kids to honor their dad for the rest of their lives, and you might be making it real hard on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On your own kids.
And we obviously love sports. We've had a lot of great things happen through sports, but I know a lot of people, I'm like, if you would just quit sports for your family, for your relationship with your family, you would be better off because there is so much built into it. There's so much time, there's so much energy that it's like your kid still has a heart and a soul, and especially girls and guys, they want home to be safe. They want mom and dad to be encouraging.
They're not talking about the last game all the time.
They're not talking about the game like, hey, if you just, you're better than what you're playing. Like, I just still don't want you to tell me that, right? My coach will tell me that, and I want mom and dad to care about me as a person and growing with the Lord. And when I see them growing with the Lord, then you want to grow with the Lord, and it's not that big of a deal we lost, and it's not, you don't wave with the wind all the time because your parents aren't. They don't even have to say anything besides do it themselves, which when a game gets intense and you see your dad over there just reaming on someone, what does that say to you? I mean, as a kid, you might act like that's great, but then you feel like, holy cow, Dad! I've never seen him encourage me like that, or spend time with the Lord like that, or get passionate about anything besides this. So it can hurt.
Now, I'm going to say this, Matt. It's easy as a dad to sit in a room and talk about this right now, but when you're in a game.
I know it.
When you're in a game, I never thought I would be in the middle of Kinnick State and being the only one standing trying to get everybody to stand up. And I look back, and that happened to me. I mean, more than once, that I'm up there like, we're on D. It's coming to third down. Why aren't the people standing? You know what I mean? And it is emotional. You get in there. And but that all being said, everything we're saying here today about spiritual maturity, growing in this, being reflective even after things like that.
Yeah.
And
it's important.
Say you did it wrong. Like there have been times where mom and dad have been like, I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sorry.
Yeah.
We overreact. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, admit your mistakes.
Yeah.
Two thoughts that I have. One is what could we say to these dads who are around my age, maybe a little younger now as I'm getting older? Their kids are just coming up, and there's all these options, all these teams. What should you try out for this club or that club or whatever? Who I think have a little bit of an identity problem of their own. And maybe it comes from how they were raised. I don't know where it comes from. But it's like something about some of these dads, at least, is like they're looking for significance, even among their peer group, by attaching themselves to a successful athlete who's their kid.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? You're the pastor. What
I
do you
mean,
got?
you got to grow deeper in God. I mean, it's that simple. It's like you could experience the wonder of your children and separate kind of the sports issue from
the performance.
Yeah, from who the marvel and wonder they are as people. And then pray more. Like, what do you have in mind? Lord, you help me. What do you have in mind for my kids? Why did you create them? What's your journey for them? Give me insight into my children so that I can help them accomplish your good purpose in their life. And the deeper you go with God, the better person you can be for your kids in helping them live into who He's created them to be. Yeah, I mean, that's really, I think, the root of good leadership in a home is being led well by God yourself. Surrender deeply to Him so that He can give you wisdom and insight. And it's something I'm still maturing in. I mean, I want to keep growing in this, not just for my kids and my wife, but also for grandchildren and for other people the Lord brings around me to help discern what God's doing in their lives. And you got to separate yourself, your identity from it, and ground it in Christ to be able to do that. And that's what I would comment to that.
I talked about Mason growing like 5-6 inches after his senior year, and we put him in school. Well, he's homeschooled, but we started him a year. He's young for his grade, and so I mean, he's just like, Dad, Mom, you guys screwed me. I mean, like if I'd have had that senior year. And we kind of joked about that, but it was a significant thing for him.
Right.
And he grew a ton. He got better at basketball. He would have been, I mean, he started for us his senior year. He would have been another starter. He would have maybe made some noise in our conference. But it was interesting. Just this last year, which he took as a gap year, between high school and now he's going to be at UNI, he said, I've been thinking about this because it was hard for him to let basketball go. And even after he was done with high school, he's going to fit every day and playing pickup games and coming and practicing our team. And he said, I think that if I would have had that senior year, there's a chance I would have tried to go play at Dubuque or at some small college, and maybe even to the point where I would have walked on somewhere. I mean, you go down to Faith and walk on without even being half as good as he was. You know what I mean? And no offense to Faith, but he's just like, I think the Lord just orchestrated it because He knows how distracted I would have been by basketball. And it's time for me to get on with what He wants to do with my life. I really appreciate that.
And He's embracing the sovereignty of God right there in it. And that's so good, in that disappointment or whatever he's working through.
And I'm glad, I mean, from my perspective, I'm glad that he felt he didn't, I don't know, that there wasn't this crazy pressure from me.
Right.
Despite the times that I failed in the stands and all that.
Yeah.
My second thought was social media posts. The social media posts, and I'm very active on social media, and I'm not saying I have an A+ rating.
You can't talk much about social media.
But honestly, like the 5th grade girls basketball team won the whatever medal at the whatever tournament. And there's this, all this like 8 pictures and this big thing about Mercedes was part of the championship team. And I think that one of the things I would challenge parents to do is like think through. That's great if you want to post pictures on social media, celebrate your kid
Right.
competing, having a great tournament.
Right.
But so much of the emphasis is like, I've tried to intentionally sometimes make posts when things didn't go well. You know what I mean? To not just send a message to the world, but sending a message to my kids like, I still love coming and watching you play. Like, I want to see more posts on social media from people whose teams, their kids' teams went like 0-5 and looked like complete trash, but you were there celebrating your kid. Let's have some more of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
This is good. You know, I mean, I think we could go on forever. There's so many dynamics to operating in this as a family. There just really is. But I don't know. In terms of closing comments, for me, caring about each other emotionally, and not building that pressure in there is going to reap a lot of dividends over the next 60 to 70 years.
Yeah.
You know? I think that if parents could value that and steward their kids' hearts more than their sports performance, we'd be in a better place with all this.
And then can I? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I like the closing comments theme.
Okay, so that's
are
fine.
you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
I would say I read an article when the kids were probably late junior high, early high school about if you could have a laissez-faire approach to whatever your kids' passions are, they are going to find out much quicker how hard they want to work and how good they want to be versus trying to please your mom, please your dad because your mom and dad care so much. So you want to care enough to give them the opportunities to develop how God made them to be the best they can be. So you want to avail them of opportunities in a spirit-led way. We thought we'd pray a lot about friends, drugs, sex, alcohol. You know, we prayed more parenting these two around their sports involvement and asking the Lord what's right, what's wrong, what's too much, what's not enough. And believe it or not, Lord will let you know. Awesome. He'll pull you in a direction you hadn't thought of. He'll pull you out of stuff you thought was great. You follow that peace. When you're asking him, he'll let you know you're unsettled. You don't feel good about this. And then you test the spirits and you still don't. Like, I think that's wrong. So anyway, follow peace, pray. And then when your kids compete, especially upper class, junior, senior year in high school, and then if they go on to play college ball or even professional ball, they would have had to develop an internal heart and passion and gear to carry them on. And it has nothing to do with the noise of their mom and dad. Mm-hmm. So if you can get the noise of mom and dad out of their life sooner rather than later, and they find out, how bad do I want to play? How good do I want to be? How important is this to me? That will carry them as far as they want to take it. I remember it wasn't so much Ike. Ike every year was very excited for the next season, anything with the ball to compete. I feel like that's very male, especially how God made Ike. He loves competition. Adrienne loved being with her friends. She liked the workout. She liked the challenge, but she's not geared like I just want to get in there and, compete and grind. And, so every year Adrienne would have to decide I feel like for like 7 years in a row, Adrienne had to decide every basketball season if she really wanted to play. And we would say, you know what? You've had a lot of fun playing, but it takes a ton of time. It's a little hard on your body. What do you think? She'd say, I'm going to think about it. And we'd say, great, take your time.
Not playing is an option.
Absolutely.
That you could get behind.
Yeah. Absolutely. I said, it's a big world out there. Student government's amazing. Some people love checkers. We don't care. We kind of want you to be having fun with friends. You can work your whole life at Hy-Vee. Like I didn't love the idea of my kids taking a job. I would like them to take advantage of things that they can only do in junior high and high school just because it's a short season. But I didn't care. We didn't care what it was. We said, it should be fun. And you should decide you want to do it. And literally every year, Adrienne had to decide because she wasn't sure, because she would count the cost. She was like, this is a ton of time. My legs do hurt. I think my ankles are a little sore. I mean, like she was considering the whole picture. And then when she would redecide, then she knew she was going to be in. We didn't decide it for her.
Yes.
And I think that internal gear that carried these guys.
I tell my kids and I tell our basketball guys all the time, there are a lot of really amazing things you can do for the kingdom of God that's not playing basketball. You know what I mean? Like, this just doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, now for some of you, maybe it matters. Maybe for one of you, it's going to be the thing you do for the next 5 years.
And it becomes a big platform.
But like, go do something else that the Lord blesses in your life. To just give them the freedom. I mean, but parents, you got to live with an open hand there.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay with not having to live through the athletic prowess of your children to get to that spot.
Yep.
Final comments. What do you got?
That is so true. I can see, looking back, I can see how discouraging it would be because we're naturally athletic. I'm tall. I really only played like some of my best ball 1 year, my senior year. And it really wasn't anything besides how I grew as a person. And I know, and you guys probably knew, I could have probably played somewhere bigger if I would have been like just every year grinding it out, had my head, been focused, and they knew I would like go one-on-one against dad, but I would never play that way in a game. You know what I mean? So I'm sure there was some like, oh, what is she doing? Like, she can do this. But I never felt that because I didn't believe it like they did. And I really think that if they would have pushed me, I maybe could have gone somewhere a little bigger, but I wouldn't be like, I might not love the Lord. I might not want to hang out with my parents. There's just something bigger. And I think a lot of that was them listening to the Lord and asking the Lord. And then let's pray about your club team. Let's see where God has you for that. And I never went into a club season like, I can't believe I have to do this club team. And I know there's a lot of kids who are like, I don't want to be on this club team. But we prayed about it. We felt like, okay, and then let's do this. Then you go, your parents are sacrificing some money, and so you go do it with all you've got, even if it's not the best or not the top. So even praying about teams, which I didn't think was a big deal. I thought we just did that. But I that's not what every family does. But praying about the little things. What team should you be on? Who do you think the coaches are going to be on that team? Not how many are we going to win and are we going to get seen, but let's see, like, what does the Lord have? And I seriously look back on my sports and think that was so much fun.
Do you remember praying about that stuff, or were you talking about your parents praying about it?
I remember praying, like, they would be like, let's be in prayer about it. We might say a family prayer about it, and I would kind of be praying, and they would be praying, and we would kind of come to a consensus of, like, this might be a good spot.
I'm just thinking of a good just self-check for people listening to this. Have you ever prayed about your kid's club team and whether it should even be a thing? I mean, that's surrendering to the Lord, and the Lord will honor that. Good stuff.
So,
Mike?
I would just say, if you're listening to this and you feel like you haven't done it correctly, just as a parent, just going to your kids and having a conversation with them about it would mean a ton, and just kind of hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
Because even if you have not done it right and the kids are pretty hurt, just having a good conversation, or if it takes a few, you can turn it around fast, and they're going to appreciate that more than anything that you're going to say after that. I know that would mean a lot and has meant a lot to buddies that I had, that their parents, even years after they got done, they went and kind of mended that relationship by just apologizing. And, if you're a kid and just let your parents know. If you're a kid listening to this, just let your parents know, like, what you're doing isn't helpful,
Yeah.
Just keeping them in check and working together on it, because at the end of the day, you're going to, like Adrienne said, you're going to want a relationship with your parents after sports, and sports should not be something that gets in the way of it. I still have a lot of fun playing football. Otherwise, I wouldn't play anymore, and people always ask me, how much longer do you want to play? I'm going to like to play until I'm done having fun with it, and as long as the body and the Lord want me to keep playing. And so for that, I think it's just thanks to the parents. There's a lot of guys, even in the NFL, that they can't stand playing football, but they're good at it, so they keep doing it. But I still enjoy, a lot of parts about it. So
Cool.
Thanks to the parents for raising us like that.
Were you going to say something?
That's awesome.
What Ike was saying there about if you're a kid listening to this and you don't know how to bring it up to parents, just share this with them and ask them to listen to it, and could we have a conversation?
This podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Your comment reminds me, and I know you listened to this because you told me you did. I did a podcast interview with a guy named Trace Embry at the National Religious Broadcasters, and he was the guy who was deaf on cell phones.
Yeah.
And he said, do not give a minor living in your house a cell phone. And he was pretty emphatic about that. And you remember me, that's an example of where I had to go to my kids and go, guys, I shouldn't have done what I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you said that. I like listening to your podcast a lot.
But it's like, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
To admit that, like, because I was trying to, I had a lot of good reasons to like give my kids unfettered access to the internet, as bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
Now that I understand things differently, just like these parents that are trying to, it's not like they're trying to ruin their kids.
No.
They want the best for them, really.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love what Ike's saying there too for parents is it's okay to apologize to your kids. I mean, if you feel bad, an apology is huge. And to go say, hey, we're all learning along the way.
That's right.
And I'm sorry, I was too over this way, and I'm going to try and learn and grow. And like Ike said, kids they respond well to that kind of thing.
And parents, give your kids permission to tell you when you're out of line. You know, just open that line of conversation because it's a growth thing. If you're in a habit of doing something that isn't helpful, you're not going to just stop it in the heat of the moment because you've had a revelation. So give your kids permission to say, Dad, that was too much. Or, Mom, if that's the last thing you ever say to me ever about sports, like, you know, just like have it be a safe enough relationship where you can have that kind of dialogue because that also can carry through your whole life. So
I was, the long view. I think about your family. You guys are tight. I mean, you're out in Buffalo and you're back in Iowa, and I mean, but I think, aren't you doing like a family fun day today with everyone or something like that?
Staycation.
and so, I mean, I want that for my kids. I want to have a tight, like when they're adults and the grandkids, they want to come around because I'm not always harping on nitpicky, stupid stuff. And like, take the long view, take the kingdom view. And if you get to go watch your kid play in the NFL or All-American basketball, great. That's kind of a cherry on top. But
Totally.
You know, want to say thank you to Fluidyne. Fluidyne is a business that most of you never need their products. They do water treatment, but Mike Mant and Eric and Targi Mant are there, and our boy Swen, who they let leave work to come set up the audio and video for this because I needed some help in a pinch. So shout out to those guys. And Tim, will you end this just with a prayer?
Sure, you bet.
For parents, for kids, whatever you want to do.
This has been great, Matt. Yeah. Father, thank you for the chance to sit in this room and talk about this reality in our world. And you have great wisdom. I pray for all the parents listening, for the kids that are listening, children, young athletes, whatever age. Give wisdom to each one of us around this great gift of sports, which we know comes from your hand, but is also can be something that takes over our lives in too much of a way. And then we lose sight of the larger picture and even maybe being restrained and led by you. So give us wisdom on that. And thank you for your guidance and blessing in our lives. We ask that you bless everyone who hears this and cause them to seek your wisdom and show them the path to life that you have for them. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being here, guys, and thanks everyone who listened for tuning in. Check out other stuff, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.
great. Thanks.
The CC Podcast Conversations is part of Christian Crusaders Radio and Internet Ministry, started in 1936 and is one of America's longest-running radio ministries. We are 100% donor-funded, and donations to our ministry are tax-deductible. So if you are encouraged, challenged, or inspired by today's conversation, please consider making a donation on our website, christiancrusaders.org, or mail a check to Christian Crusaders, 7401 University Avenue, Cedar Falls, Iowa, 50613. In addition to our other podcasts, which I mentioned at the front of this episode, I want to mention two of our other ministry partners worth checking out. First, the Cedar Falls Bible Conference, equipping believers with the truth of God's Word since 1922. Visit cedarfallsbibleconference.com for free access to previous conference content or for more information about upcoming events. Second is Power to Change Digital Strategies, an online ministry partnering volunteer Christian mentors with people around the world searching the internet for answers. If you or someone you know could benefit from an anonymous online conversation with a caring Christian adult, go to issuesiface.com. Or if you would like to be a volunteer Christian mentor, please visit p2cdigital.com. That's the letter P, the number 2, and the letter C, digital.com. See our episode notes for details and links, and remember to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. God's richest blessings to you, and thanks again for listening.